It started like any other quiet Sunday morning, the kind where I finally had time to breathe. James had left early for one of his so-called meetings, and Noah was upstairs, probably building one of his little gadgets again. I figured I'd finally clean up James's home office and something I'd been putting off for some weeks. He never liked me in there. Work stuff, he'd say. Nothing you'd want to mess with. Still, the door wasn't locked, and the clutter was getting on my nerves. Coffee-stained mugs, piles of unopened mail, snack wrappers. It didn't exactly scream professional environment. I started with the desk, sorting papers, tossing junk mail. That's when I opened the bottom drawer, the one he always kept shut. Drawer. A few old tax folders and a stapler that barely worked. I saw it. A red envelope. That stopped me. It was glossy, thick, and out of place. Not like the usual boring manila ones he kept everything else in. Something told me not to touch it. But I did. Slowly I pulled it out. It wasn't sealed. No name on the front. Just there. Inside were 2 first-class plane tickets. I blinked. Santorini, Greece. Departure in 2 weeks. A 5-star couples resort. Private infinity pool. Candlelit dinner on arrival. A spa package. I flipped through the printed booking confirmation like I was flipping through someone else's fantasy. I held my breath as I checked the names. James Carter. The second ticket. Blank. No Rachel Carter. No guest of James. Just an empty space next to his name. I sat down slowly in his chair. My heart was beating too loud. For a second I told myself maybe it was a surprise. Maybe he just hadn't filled in the name yet. Maybe. I don't know. I heard footsteps outside the office. Noah peeked. Hey Mom, you okay? I turned the tickets face down quickly. Yeah, sweetie. Just cleaning up. He walked in and glanced around. His eyes settled on the envelope. He tilted his head. Are those the Greece tickets? I froze. What did you say? He pointed at the red envelope. I saw those last week. They're for Dad and Aunt Vanessa, right? My mouth went dry. Aunt Vanessa? I looked at him. How do you know that? Noah shrugged. He wasn't joking. He wasn't even nervous. I heard Dad talking to her and I saw the emails. I saved them. I have a surprise for you, Mom. A surprise? The room tilted slightly. My hands started to shake, but I kept my face calm. For him. Noah. What kind of surprise? He smiled. A strange, calm smile. Don't worry, you'll see. He turned and left like nothing happened. Just like that. I sat there in complete silence, staring at the envelope. My fingers clenched around it without meaning to. James and Vanessa. A couple's resort, 2 tickets, a blank name, and my 11-year-old saying, "You'll see." I wasn't sure what I was more afraid of, what James was hiding, or what Noah already knew. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that red envelope, the flight tickets, the blank name, and Noah's face. So calm, too calm for a 11-year-old boy who had just told his mother that her husband was planning a romantic trip with someone else, someone I thought was family. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling while James snored softly beside me, completely unaware. I wondered if he even felt guilty. Did he look at me and feel anything at all? The next morning, I made pancakes just like I always did. James kissed my cheek like nothing was wrong and left for work earlier than usual. Said he had calls, lined up back to back. I nodded, pretending I believed him. Once I heard the front door close, I called Noah downstairs. He appeared a few minutes later, still in his pajamas, hugging the tablet he never went anywhere without. He sat across from me at the kitchen table, munching on a pancake like we were about to talk about homework. I pushed my plate aside. Noah, I said quietly. Yesterday, what you said about the tickets and Aunt Vanessa. He didn't look surprised. He just swallowed, wiped his mouth, and nodded. Yeah, he said. I knew you'd want to know. You said you've heard things. Emails? He leaned back, in his chair like he'd been waiting for this. A while ago, I noticed Dad was acting weird. He was smiling at his phone a lot. Then Vanessa started coming over more, even when you weren't home. I didn't like it. Something felt off. His voice didn't shake. He was calm, like he'd practiced. This moment a dozen times in his head. I saw a message pop up on his phone once, he continued. It said, "Can't wait to have you all to myself in Greece." I remembered it because of the country. I'd just done a school report on it. I blinked hard, trying to process that. You read their messages? He nodded. Only once or twice, but then I started paying attention. She always hugged him longer when she thought no one was looking. And once, when I walked into the living room, they were sitting on the couch. Too close, like really close. I clenched my jaw. Why didn't you say anything sooner? He looked down. I didn't want to hurt you unless I was sure, and I didn't know what you'd do, so I started saving things just in case. My chest tightened. My son, my baby, had been silently protecting me while I was too blind to see what was happening in my own house. What do you mean, saving things? I asked carefully. He glanced toward his tablet. I'll show you, but not now. I want you to be ready. It's a lot. His words felt heavier than they should have for someone his age. I stared at him for a moment. Noah, what do you mean, you want me to be ready? He shrugged. I've been keeping track of stuff, not just messages, other things, videos. You need to see them all at once. But I promise, what I show you will make everything make sense. Something in his tone sent a chill down my back. He wasn't doing this out of curiosity or mischief. He was doing this because he genuinely wanted to protect me, to give me the truth. I reached out and took his hand. You've been really brave. I'm proud of you. He looked up, surprised. You're not mad. Mad? I shook my head. No, I'm hurt, but not at you. He let out a small breath, then gave me a tiny smile. I'm going to get everything ready, he said, standing up. When it's time, I'll show you. But you need to promise me something. I raised an eyebrow. What? Don't do anything until you've seen it all. Promise? I hesitated, then nodded. I promise. He nodded again, then turned and walked back upstairs. And I sat there, in my quiet kitchen, realizing that the person who had seen the truth all along wasn't me. It was my son. 3 days passed before Noah told me it was time. I didn't ask questions. I didn't press him. I waited, because somehow, deep in my gut, I knew that whatever he had to show me would change everything. He came into the living room that evening after dinner, holding his tablet and a small USB cable. His expression was serious. Mom, can we go to the garage? I nodded and followed him out, heart thudding. The garage was quiet, dimly lit by the single bulb overhead. James's car sat there like a sleeping animal. Just yesterday, he had taken it to another networking dinner. My stomach twisted just thinking about it. Noah walked over to a small cabinet near the workbench and pulled out a black device the size of a pack of gum. I put this under the dashboard, he said softly, holding it out to me. It's motion activated. I installed it a few weeks ago. I stared at him. You did this yourself? He nodded. It's not hard. YouTube. That was my son. Quiet, observant, smarter than I ever gave him credit for. He plugged the camera into his tablet and tapped the screen. A small progress bar appeared, then a video opened. Noah? I started, but he held up a hand. Just watch, Mom. The screen flickered, then showed the inside of James's car. The camera was angled just right, just enough to see the driver's seat, passenger side, and a bit of the center console. It was from 3 nights ago. I watched James slide into the driver's seat, adjust the mirror, and smile. The passenger door opened and Vanessa climbed in. Not the stiff, polite cousin act I'd seen at home. She was laughing, tossing her hair. She leaned over and touched his arm. Then she kissed him. It wasn't a quick kiss. It wasn't a mistake. It was long, familiar, intimate. My hand flew to my mouth. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just froze. The footage continued. They sat there, for a while, talking and laughing like two teenagers sneaking out at night. At one point, she leaned her head on his shoulder. He kissed the top of her head. I looked away. Noah paused the video. I didn't want to believe it at first, he said quietly, but they weren't even trying to hide it. I blinked fast, forcing my eyes to stay dry. You saw all this before? He nodded. A few clips, but I didn't show you until I had more. I didn't want it to look like a misunderstanding. He tapped the screen again, and another clip played. This time it was daylight. James and Vanessa at a gas station. She got out, walked around to his side, and handed him something. They laughed. Then she kissed him again, this time in broad daylight. Noah, stop, I whispered. He did. The garage was silent except for the quiet hum of the refrigerator in the corner. I'm sorry, Mom, he said. I shook my head. You didn't do anything wrong. He looked at me, unsure. I didn't know if I should tell you. I didn't want to hurt you. You didn't hurt me, I said. They did. My voice was steady, but inside, I felt like I was cracking. Not just from the betrayal, but from the realization that my 11-year-old had carried this burden on his own. You're so brave, I told him, and smart. Smarter than both of them. He didn't smile. Instead, he said, That's not the surprise I told you about. That's just part of it. I stared at him. There's more. He nodded slowly. Yeah, and once you see it, you'll know exactly what to do. After watching those videos, something inside me changed. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. Not even when I was alone. I just stopped pretending. Every moment, every hug, every time Vanessa said, I love you, sis, it all started to feel like poison. For years, I believed James when he told me Vanessa was his cousin. On my mom's side, he said. We're not super close, but we're all each other has left. I welcomed her into our home, cooked for her, even trusted her with Noah when I was sick. Now I couldn't remember one thing about her that ever really made sense. The next morning, after James left for work, I opened the old photo box in our closet. It was dusty. I hadn't looked through it in years. Wedding pictures, birthday parties, baby showers. There she was, always smiling somewhere in the corner of our life. I picked up one photo from our 3rd anniversary dinner. James was standing, between me and Vanessa, arms around both of us. I turned it over, hoping maybe I'd written something on the back. Nothing. Noah walked in just as I placed the picture down. I've been thinking about that photo, he said, looking at the one I had in my hand. It always looked weird to me. I looked at him. Weird how? She's at everything, every holiday, every dinner, but never in any family group pictures before you met, Dad. He had a point. I went to James's social media and started scrolling, slowly at first, then faster, looking for photos of him and Vanessa from before we were married. There were a few, but they were always just the two of them, often taken, in places I'd never heard him talk about. Didn't he say they spent their childhood summers together in Oregon? I asked Noah. Yeah, he replied. But she once told me she's never even been to Oregon. That was it. We went to the computer and did a reverse image search on one of the oldest. Pictures James had shown me when we were dating. A photo of a family reunion in a backyard. Vanessa was standing next to a woman James said was his aunt. It took 5 seconds. The image was from a stock photo website. The same picture had been used in an online ad for picnic tables. I stared at the screen, feeling sick. He faked it, I whispered. The whole story. The family connection. Everything. Noah said nothing, just waited for me to breathe. We kept going. Emails, old trip receipts. I found hotel bookings from years ago. 2 guests, 2 meals. Always for the same weekends James claimed he was at conferences. He had taken her with him on those trips. Some of them were right before or after our anniversaries. One was during my birthday weekend. I sat back in my chair, stunned. Why would he lie like this? I asked quietly, more to myself than to Noah. Because if you knew she wasn't family, he said softly, you'd never have let her into the house. He was right. I looked at the pictures again. All the memories I thought were real suddenly felt like props in a play. Everything had been carefully staged, carefully lied about. Vanessa wasn't a cousin, she was his mistress, and I had served her coffee in my kitchen. Noah reached over and squeezed my hand. We're getting closer, Mom. I told you I'd help you figure it all out. I nodded, staring at the screen in front of us. If James had gone to this much trouble to fake a family history, I had to wonder, what else was he hiding? Noah was quiet all evening, not withdrawn, focused. He barely touched his dinner. He spent most of his time in the garage and came back inside with smudges on his hands and that same determined look in his eyes. When I asked him what he was working on, he just said, "You'll see soon, Mom. It's almost ready." That night I lay awake again, staring at the ceiling. This time, I wasn't filled with confusion. I was filled with something colder, sharper, a mix of anger and anticipation. I kept seeing James's face, his lies, Vanessa's arms around him. That cheap photo he once told me was his favorite childhood memory. He thought he had covered every trail. He thought I would never ask questions. He didn't count on our son. The next morning, Noah woke up early. He came to my room with a GPS tracker in his hand. "I put it under Dad's car last night," he said, eyes steady. "It's synced to my tablet. We'll know where he goes today." I didn't even ask how he got it. He told me James had another regional team dinner scheduled for tonight, according to the calendar in his phone. I didn't ask how he saw that either. By now, I'd stopped being surprised by anything Noah was capable of. When James came downstairs that morning, dressed in his favorite navy blazer and humming like nothing was wrong, I played along. I smiled. I handed him his coffee. "I'll probably be home late," he said, kissing my cheek. "Meeting might run long." "Of course," I said, brushing imaginary lint off his sleeve. "Take your time." I watched him walk out the door and climb into the car, the same one he'd kissed Vanessa in. As soon as he pulled away, Noah opened his tablet. A small blinking dot appeared on the screen. We waited. Hours passed. I tried to read, but I couldn't focus. My fingers kept twitching. My heart kept racing. Every time the dot moved, I held my breath. Finally, just after 8 p.m., it stopped. A location popped up. Rosewood Garden Inn, a boutique hotel just across town. Small, expensive, discreet. "Noah," and I looked at each other. "Let's go," I said. I didn't need to change clothes. I didn't need to put on makeup. I just grabbed my keys and followed the blinking dot. We parked a block away, close enough to see the entrance without being noticed. I turned off the engine and we sat in silence. It was a beautiful hotel, ivy-covered brick, warm yellow lights glowing from the windows, the kind of place people went when they didn't want to be seen. An hour passed, then the front doors opened, and there they were, James and Vanessa. He had one hand on the small of her back. She was laughing at something he said, flipping her hair over her shoulder like a girl on a first date. He leaned in and kissed her. Not a quick kiss, the kind that said, "I belong to you." I felt everything inside me turn cold. Noah silently raised his phone and hit record. He didn't zoom in, he didn't speak. He just held it steady as they walked hand in hand, across the front lot, right past a flower bed where I had once taken a family photo of us. They disappeared into the parking garage, laughing. I sat still, staring at the empty sidewalk. I didn't cry. I didn't move. "Mom," Noah said gently. "We got what we needed." I nodded, but I wasn't done. Not yet. As we pulled away, Noah turned. to me. There's one more part to the surprise, but I need you to wait until your birthday. My birthday? He nodded. You'll understand then. I didn't ask what it was, because by now I trusted him completely. My birthday came faster than I expected. James acted like nothing had changed. He brought me flowers in the morning, yellow roses, my favorite. Or at least, that's what he thought. They used to be my favorite before I learned he once gave the same kind to Vanessa. Happy birthday, babe, he said, smiling like the man I used to know. I have something special planned for tonight. I nodded, pretending to be surprised. Oh, that's sweet. He had no idea what was really coming. Noah had been quiet the last few days, carefully preparing something. I didn't know the full extent of it, but I knew enough to trust him. Every time I looked at him, I felt both heartbreak and awe. He wasn't just my son, he was my shield, my anchor. That afternoon, he asked me to help him set up the living room. Nothing fancy, he said. Just make it feel like a birthday. I helped him hang up some simple decorations. We brought out a small cake from the fridge. He even lit candles. Then he handed me a small black remote and whispered, "Just press the button when I say." I nodded. I didn't ask questions. When James walked through the door that evening, he looked relaxed, confident. Vanessa followed right behind him carrying a gift bag. Yes, she came too. She was dressed in a red blouse, hair done perfectly, face glowing. The same woman who'd pretended to be my cousin-in-law for years stood in my living room like she belonged. There. Happy birthday, Rachel, she said cheerfully. I brought you something. I took the bag with a smile. Thank you, Vanessa. That's very thoughtful. She grinned and walked over to the couch like she owned the place. James poured himself a glass of wine and made a toast. To my incredible wife. You've been through so much and you still managed to smile. Tonight we celebrate you. I lifted my glass and met his eyes. You're right, I said. We should celebrate the truth. Noah stood up from the side table and cleared his throat. Before we cut the cake, he said, I want to give Mom her gift. James chuckled. What did you get her, buddy? Another science project? Noah smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Sort of. He looked at me. I nodded. Then I pressed the button. The TV screen behind them flickered to life. At first, nothing but silence. Then footage. The car dashboard camera, James and Vanessa laughing, kissing, holding hands, in his car, at the hotel, at the gas station. Multiple clips, one after another. James froze. His wine glass tipped slightly in his hand. Vanessa's smile vanished. The room fell so quiet, I could hear my own breathing. Noah's voice broke the silence. You lied to both of us, and you didn't even try to hide it. James stepped forward. Rachel, I can explain. No, I said, my voice calm. You can't. Vanessa stood up, flustered. This is completely inappropriate. I turned to her. Is it? You kissed my husband in my car, planned a romantic trip behind my back, and lied about being family. And now you want to call this inappropriate? She opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came out. James tried to speak again, but I held up my hand. Don't. Just don't. Noah walked over and stood beside me. I put my arm around him, steady and strong. The video ended. The screen went dark. But the truth was already burned into the walls of the room. James looked at me, eyes wide, like he couldn't believe I'd found out. But I wasn't shocked anymore. I was ready. I looked down at Noah. He didn't say a word, because he knew this wasn't the end. Not yet. 2 months later, I stood before a judge. The courtroom was packed. Cameras weren't allowed inside, but reporters hovered near the doors. The story had already spread online. Noah made sure of that. He uploaded the dash cam footage to a secure site, sent it anonymously to local news outlets. The headline had gone viral within days. Wife discovers husband's affair through her son's birthday surprise. James's company saw it. His face was plastered on every gossip blog for a week. The board asked for his resignation. He refused. They fired him. But today wasn't about scandal. Today was about consequences. I took the stand slowly. My lawyer had already laid out everything. The forged financial documents, the secret transfers from our joint account, the $80,000 James had funneled into Vanessa's consulting business. Vanessa had been arrested with him. They were being tried together for fraud, identity deception, and financial abuse. The judge looked at me. "Mrs. Carter, you may proceed with your statement." I took a deep breath, looked at James, looked at Vanessa, and then I spoke. "Your Honor," I began, my voice steady. "I was married to James Carter for 17 years. I gave him everything. My loyalty, my time, my trust. When I chose to be a stay-at-home mother, I did it because we agreed it was best. For our family, he promised he'd protect us. Instead, he used that decision against me. He lied, not once, not by accident, but deliberately, and over a period of years. He gave my cousin's identity to another woman so she could fake her way into our lives. He opened accounts in my name. He drained funds meant for our son's future. He stole not only money, but time. Years I can't get back." And when confronted, he didn't apologize. He called me emotional. He laughed. I turned to Vanessa. "You pretended to care about me, sat at my dinner table, smiled at my son, all while plotting with my husband behind my back. You knew what you were doing, and you did it anyway." Vanessa rolled her eyes slightly, but James just stared at his hands. I looked back to the judge. "But the reason I'm standing here today isn't to cry or beg. I'm here because I believe in accountability, and because of my son, my 13-year-old son, who had more courage and clarity than both these adults put together." My voice wavered then, just a little. He saw the truth, and he showed it to me. Without Noah, I'd still be in the dark. I owe him everything. I ended my statement and stepped down. The judge was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded slowly. "Thank you, Mrs. Carter." What followed was swift. James and Vanessa were both sentenced to probation and community service, with restitution orders totaling over $100,000. Vanessa's fake identity charges would likely lead to federal court. I walked out of that courthouse into the sunlight, not as someone's wife, but as myself again. Noah ran up to me on the steps and gave me the biggest hug. "Is it really over?" he asked. I looked down at him. "The worst part is, the healing begins now." I had already filed for divorce. The house would be mine. James had signed over his rights when faced with the financial evidence. As for Vanessa, she vanished from the neighborhood long before the trial ended. Her name was ruined. And me? I started working again. I got a part-time job at the local library and signed up for bookkeeping classes online. But the best part of my day was always coming home. To Noah. To peace. To a life where lies no longer lived in the walls. Do subscribe. And like the video.